Chapter 7 of Tractate Gittin continues discussing the laws of the divorce document, and additionally it covers many related discussions on illnesses, cures, and similar. The first Mishnah says, if somebody contracts cardiacus, a delirium caused by drinking a lot of fresh wine, which some explain to be the name of a demon that causes this phenomenon, and then says that somebody should write a divorce document for his wife, it's not valid. If he said to write a divorce document, then drank wine and contracted this cardiacus, and said to not write the divorce document, we ignore him. If somebody became mute and he's asked if they should write a divorce document for him and he nods yes, he's tested 3 times to make sure he's communicating properly, and then they write it. The Gemara defines cardiacus as the demon which causes delirium from drinking fresh wine, and the name is relevant if you plan on writing a amulet of protection. It additionally lists ancient medicinal cures for this, and for heat stroke, which is water, and then for 2 days of heat stroke it's bloodletting, and then other ancient medical practices and whatnot for more, along with particular foods which cure frostbite. It also mentions some incidents where some servants of the sage of the Reish Galusa tried to kill the sage Rav Sheshas after he exposed that they were feeding people non-kosher food, first by putting a bone in his food, which he found, and then digging a hole and putting a mat over it, as Rav Sheshas was blind and he would walk over it and die. So he was warned right beforehand, as he asked a nearby boy to recite a verse, and the boy said, turn to your right or to your left, and he avoided the trap. Another topic, there's the verse as said by King Shlomo, King Solomon, I provided myself with masculine and feminine orchestration with delights of mankind, and Shida and Shidois. Some translated those last two as male or female demons. Some said it meant chariots. The reason King Shlomo needed demons was, as famously, he wanted to build the first temple in Jerusalem, but it was forbidden to build it out of metal tools, which made cutting stone pretty difficult, and he was told to use the shamir worm, a special worm that can cut stones it's placed on, which Moshe had used to engrave the stones of the ephod. He didn't know where the worm was, though, so he took a male and female demon and pressured them to tell him, but they said that only Ashmedai, the king of the demons, knows where it is. By the way, some write that Ashmedai is a title for king. It's not his actual name. Anyways, they told him Ashmedai could be found on a particular mountain where he had a pit dug filled with water, which was covered with a stone and sealed with his signet, and every day Ashmedai would ascend to heaven to learn Torah in the Heavenly Academy, and then come down to earth to learn down here, and then he goes to his pit, checks the seal, drinks some water, and then leaves. So King Shlomo sent his commander, Benaiah, son of Yehoiada, who took a chain with God's name engraved on it, wool, and wineskins, and then went to Ashmedai's lair. He dug from beneath the pit, funneled out all of the water, and then funneled in the wine, and plugged it with the wool, leaving the seal untampered, and hid in a tree to wait. Ashmedai returned, uncovered his hole, saw the wine, and he didn't want to drink it, as verses discouraged drinking wine, but eventually he became thirsty enough that he drank it anyways. He became intoxicated, and fell asleep. Benaiah then jumped down and wrapped him up in the chains, and when Ashmedai woke up, he couldn't break them as God's name was carved into them. So then Benaiah traveled with Ashmedai back to Jerusalem. Along the way, Ashmedai kept knocking down houses and trees, until a widow begged him to not knock down her house, so Ashmedai jumped so hard out of the way that he broke a bone. Ashmedai mentioned the verse, and a soft expression can break a bone. Anyways, Ashmedai saw a lost blind man and helped him on his way. He saw a drunk man and helped him on his way. He saw a joyous wedding and began to cry, and he saw a man asking a shoemaker for shoes which would last 7 years, and he laughed. He also saw a sorcerer doing sorcery, and this also made him laugh. Eventually he was brought before King Shlomo. Ashmedai informed him that when Shlomo dies, all he'll have is the cubits of his burial plot, in spite of him conquering the entire world and capturing him, and King Shlomo told him to tell him the location of the shamir worm so that way he could build the temple. Ashmedai informed him that the worm was in the care of the angel, the master of the sea, which lent the worm to a certain bird so it could build its nests. Anyways, Shlomo sent others to find this bird. They did. They put a glass box over its nest. The bird returned, saw the box, flew off, grabbed the shamir worm, and placed it on the box, causing it to split in two. So they scared off the bird, grabbed the shamir worm, and brought it to King Shlomo. In the meanwhile, the bird swallowed a rock to choke itself for breaking its oath to the master of the sea. So the first temple of Jerusalem was thereby built. Anyways, Benaiah went to Ashmedai and asked him about all the things that had occurred while they traveled together. He was told he'd helped the blind man, as he knew he was totally righteous, and whoever helped him would be rewarded. He had helped the drunk man, as he knew the individual was wicked, and he wanted to use up any of the man's potential reward. He had cried over the wedding, as he knew the husband would die in 30 days, and the bride would have to wait 13 years to do Yibum, the levirate marriage, to remarry his brother, who was a minor at the time, until he became an adult. He'd laughed at the man who asked a shoemaker to make him shoes that would last 7 years, as he was going to die in 7 days, and he laughed at the sorcerer as he didn't realize that there was a king's treasury buried directly beneath him. Anyways, Ashmedai remained with King Shlomo until they completed the building of the temple. Once Shlomo approached him and they conversed, Shlomo asked him about the verse that references demons being superior to humans. Ashmedai said he'd need to take off the chains and Shlomo's ring, which had God's name carved into it, to be able to show him, so King Shlomo complied with this. Ashmedai immediately swallowed the ring and regained his power, placing one wing in heaven and one in earth, and throwing Shlomo a distance of 400 parseos. Shlomo eventually recovered and spent a long while journeying back to Israel. Nobody believed that he was the king along the way. Eventually he made his way back to Jerusalem and claimed that he was the King Shlomo, but they said that's not possible as the king's been sitting on the throne this whole time. Shlomo managed to convince them of his legitimacy, and he confirmed that the impostor Shlomo had never shown his feet as demons have rooster feet, and additionally that the impostor Shlomo was trying to engage in intimacy with people forbidden to him. Anyways, Shlomo was given the ring and the chain, marched into the throne room, and Ashmedai flew off, but nevertheless, Shlomo lived the rest of his life in fear of Ashmedai, as the verse says, "Behold, Solomon's bed, 60 mighty warriors of the mightiest of Israel encircle it, all handle the sword and are skilled in warfare. Each man has a sword at his thigh because of terrors in the night." It's debated if Shlomo ever fully regained his status as king. It additionally gives some unique ancient medicinal practices and customs to cure types of headaches. There are cures for eye issues, types of blindness, nosebleeds, mouth bleeding, toothaches, heart conditions, intestinal pains, and others, types of leaves, types of foods or fluids or animals or customs and whatnot that are described. It has more of these for abdominal issues, fevers, and others. There are additional of these along with a number of general health advice. Back to the divorce document delivery. If the husband said to give the divorce document, then contracted cardiacus, becoming temporarily mentally incompetent, and during this said to not give the divorce document, it's debated if during this state they can give it anyways, or if they should just wait until afterwards. The debate is based on if this state is compared to the man being asleep, or if it's compared to the man being insane. Additionally, unlike by an insane person, this illness can actually be cured as described earlier. We try to dispute the opinions that say you can't bring a document in such a state, as this opinion held elsewhere that if somebody's throat was cut through both pipes, the trachea and esophagus, and he motioned to have his divorce document written, he is believed and it's written. However, this is different than cardiacus, as there his mind is compromised, unlike here where he is not strictly unable to think clearly. During such a state with his throat cut, you can have the divorce document brought, and you can also testify that he died from just seeing this, as he's definitely going to die. There are additional points on this. In regards to questioning somebody who became mute, there's a concern that he just has an illness where he just repeatedly nods, so it's explained that he asked a question that should be answered no, then one that should be answered yes, then no, etc. It gives other additional methods. It additionally debates the levels of mental competency attributed to an ordinary mute or a deaf mute, which is typically stricter. There are additional points on this. From a different discussion that's more in Tractate Yevamos, it mentions that a deaf mute brother can't divorce from the levirate marriage if his brother was mentally competent, but if the mentally competent brother did the levirate marriage with his mentally incompetent brother's wife, he can validly divorce her. Others did dispute this and would additionally hold that an insane woman can never be divorced out of concern that people will try to be immoral with her afterwards. New Mishnah, if somebody went to a man and asked if they should write a divorce document for his wife, and the man said to write it, and they have a scribe write it, and other witnesses sign it, even if the husband gives it, it's not valid, as the husband needs to tell the scribe to write it and to tell the witnesses to sign it. The Gemara says the issue is that the husband said they should write the document. If he said to give it, it would have been valid, according to the opinion that words can be transferred to an agent. The ending of the Mishnah then would either be according to the opposing opinion, or alternatively the whole Mishnah is like the opposing opinion, and the ending bit is just where he said to give the document. Some would hold in the described case, the scribe is allowed to be one of the signers, and this could be problematic as the scribe could end up signing the document when he wasn't requested to, so it additionally debates who this Mishnah goes in accordance with. New Mishnah, if a husband told his wife, "This is your divorce document if I die," or "This is your divorce document after this illness that he has," it's invalid, and it's like he said nothing. If he said, "This is your divorce document from today if I die," or "From now if I die," this is valid. If he said it's from today and after death, its validity is in doubt. So if he dies, she must do chalitza and can't do yibam. If he said, "This is your divorce document from today if I die from this illness," and he got better and was walking around the market, and then he got sick again and died, he's checked. If it was from the first illness, she's divorced, and if not, they're not divorced. The Gemara explains the term "if I die" can either mean from now, as in this point here, or it can refer to after he dies at a future point. If he said "from today if I die," that's the first instance it's retroactive from that point. If he didn't say from today, it refers to after his actual death. It debates the validity of the remaining terminology. Essentially, if the husband said he wanted the document to take effect after he died, it's debated if this should take effect literally after he dies, or if it means it should apply retroactively in the event that he later dies. It's disputed between a few opinions as to who we hold like. In regards to where the document being given is reliant on him dying of the illness and he recovered in between before dying later, it said it's similar to a gift, where if somebody offers one while sick and then gets better, we assume he retracted it and it would be nullified. Others debate this comparison. Based on the discussion, it's held if a person has an illness, offers a gift, and then transfers to a second illness and dies, his gift transfer would remain in effect. Additionally, others dispute the opinion that if somebody sick offers a divorce document and then recovers, it's nullified. They would instead hold the document ends the marriage, so people won't come to think the document can take effect after the husband's death. This can technically exist, as has been described. The whole betrothal to begin with is verified rabbinically, so it can therefore be retroactively undone rabbinically through whatever means. It says in related incidents by monetary laws to whether people can be held responsible for unusually occurring accidents. New Mishnah: if the husband gave a divorce document to take effect retroactively when he dies, she should no longer be alone with him unless there are witnesses, even a slave, unless it's her female slave who she's on familiar terms with. Additionally, it's debated as to what her marital status is. Some say it applies, others say it's in doubt. The Gemara says, in such a situation, if the witnesses saw them cohabit, he can assume it was done with intent to remarry, but if he saw him pay her after, we assume it was done impermissibly. Others say that even if he paid her, we assume it was to marry and the money was just a gift or something. Others disagree with this whole explanation and instead simply say if they're seen cohabiting, it's a dispute if they're assumed to be doing this to remarry or not. This is additionally qualified. In regards to if they're considered to be married, it debates if the husband is responsible during this period to provide for her. New Mishnah: if a husband told his wife that she's divorced on condition she gives him a sum of money, she's divorced, and she must give the sum. If he said it has to be given from now until 30 days, she's divorced only if she gave it within 30 days. There's a recorded incident where a husband had made the divorce conditional on the return of his cloak, and she had lost the cloak, so it was ruled that she could have just given the value of the cloak instead. The Gemara debates based on the particular wording if the document still needs to exist when she gives the money, which is additionally debated elsewhere by the laws of betrothal. It repeats both, as there's a difference between divorce and betrothal as to the willingness of the husband to make such a conditional request. It additionally debates these opinions. This is further discussed. It also clarifies the point on the payment within a time frame to say that this is an actual part of the conditional requirement, not just a request to have her pay it faster. Further, the broad case with the cloak is to establish that the value of an object can be given in such a described situation. There are additional points, and it brings a case where the custom in a region was for a sharecropper to water crops 3 times a year and take a fourth of the produce, and the deal was made to water 4 times per year and take a third, but it rained, so he only ended up watering 3 times, and it was debated if he'd still get the full produce payment. This is said to make the sharecroppers entitled to the extra portion, as it's comparable to the case of the value of the cloak being repaid instead of the actual cloak itself. It goes through some related monetary principles and additional instances of a conditional divorce document. These are further qualified. New Mishnah: if a husband told his wife that this is a divorce document on condition that you serve his father or nurse his son, she's then obligated to nurse for 2 years, although some say 18 months. If the father or son died before that, the divorce document is still valid. If the husband said the document is conditional on you serving my father or nursing my son for 2 years, and the son died or the father refused her service, not out of anger, it's not a valid divorce. Others disagree and say it is, and would hold that so long as the wife didn't cause the condition to be unable to be fulfilled, the divorce would still go through. The Gemara explains that some others would actually require her to only nurse or serve for a single day, although that could possibly be an instance where the husband had specified that it should be for a single day, and others disagree, and it's debated. There's further discussion on this. New Mishnah: if a husband told his wife, this is your divorce document if I do not return within 30 days, and he traveled from Judea to Galilee, reached Antipras, and returned, it's nullified. If he traveled from Galilee to Judea and he reached Kefar Osnai, it's nullified. If he was traveling abroad and he reached Akko and then returned on time, it's nullified. If the condition was that the divorce takes place if he's absent for 30 days and he was going back and forth, it's still a valid divorce as he wasn't alone with her during this period. The Gemara explains the particularly mentioned regions is it's where he said that's where he's going, which is conditional for the document to take effect along with him returning within 30 days. The remaining points are qualified. New Mishnah: if a man gave a divorce document on condition that he doesn't return within 12 months and he died during that period, it's not a valid divorce document. If he said this is your divorce document from now if I don't come back within 12 months and he died during that period, it would be a valid divorce document. If he said if I don't return within 12 months, write a divorce document for my wife, or write a divorce document if I don't return within 12 months, and they wrote it during 12 months and gave it after, it's invalid. Others say by the second instance it would be valid. If it was written and given after 12 months, but the husband had died. If it was given after he died, it's not valid. If they're not sure if it was before or after, her marital status is in doubt. The Gemara additionally qualifies these points with particular discussion on the differing opinions along with some particular date stipulations. And that's the end of chapter 7.